Chapter 1. Meet Albert Einstein. From Struggle to Genius. Hello, friends. Welcome to this story about one of the most famous minds in history, Albert Einstein. Today we will learn not only about his life, but also how to improve your English and your thinking skills. This story is simple, clear, and full of lessons for life. You will hear short sentences, easy words, and interesting ideas. Are you ready? Let's begin. Albert Einstein is known all over the world. His name is a symbol of genius. But, do you know something surprising? As a child, many people thought he was slow. His teachers said he would never be successful. Some people even said he was not very smart. Can you imagine that? The boy who would later change the world was once considered a slow learner. This is the first lesson. Do not believe everything others say about you. When Albert was young, he asked many questions. He wanted to know how things worked. He loved puzzles and small experiments. While other children played outside, Albert watched the clouds, studied patterns, and wondered about the stars. He asked his parents, "Why does the light move so fast?" And, "Why do things fall to the ground?" Sometimes, adults did not have answers. Sometimes, they told him to stop asking. But Albert did not stop. His curiosity was stronger than anyone's advice. This is another lesson. Curiosity can be more important than grades or rules. Even though he loved learning, school was not easy for Albert. He did not like memorizing facts. He wanted to understand ideas. But teachers wanted students to follow rules. They wanted answers without questions. Albert often felt bored or frustrated. He sometimes thought, "Maybe I am not like the other children." Many children give up when learning is difficult, but not Albert. He believed there was another way to learn. Albert's life shows us a contrast between two paths. One path is following rules and doing only what others say. The other path is following your mind, asking questions, and exploring. Most people choose the easy path. They listen to others and stay safe. Albert chose the hard path. He chose to be curious. He chose to think differently. This choice made him unique. This choice changed his life, and it can inspire you too. This story is not only about science, it is about learning, growing, and believing in yourself. Even if someone tells you you cannot do it, you can keep trying. Even if school or life feels hard, you can find your own way. You can be patient. You can be creative. You can discover new ideas, just like Albert did. During this story, we will follow Albert from a small child to a famous scientist. We will see his struggles, his mistakes, and his small victories. We will see moments of doubt and moments of discovery. Each part of his life teaches a lesson. Each part also gives you a chance to practice English. You will hear repeated words, short sentences, and simple explanations. You can listen carefully and learn both the language and the life lessons. Now, let's start with Albert's childhood. Let's see the first signs of his unusual mind. How did this curious boy begin to see the world in a special way? How did he turn questions into great ideas? These are the questions we will answer next. Chapter 2. Childhood Curiosity. Hello, friends. In this section, we will explore the early childhood of Albert Einstein. We will see how his curiosity and love for questions set him apart from other children. You will also learn simple English words and sentences while discovering an important life lesson. Curiosity can be more valuable than memorizing facts. Let's begin. Albert Einstein was born in Germany in 1879. Even as a small child, he was different from many children. While other kids were busy playing outside, Albert spent his time looking at nature. He watched birds in the sky. He listened to the sound of water in the rivers. He wanted to understand everything around him. He asked questions all the time. Why does the moon shine? He asked his mother. Why do the leaves fall from the tree? He asked his father. He was not satisfied with short answers. He wanted to understand deeply. Albert's curiosity sometimes made his parents worried. They loved him, but they could not always answer his questions. Sometimes they were tired. Sometimes they said, "Albert, please stop asking so many questions." But Albert could not stop. His mind wanted to explore. He liked thinking and discovering new ideas. This habit of asking questions is very important. It is the start of every scientist's work. At home, Albert also liked puzzles. He loved playing with small mechanical toys. He liked to see how things worked. He often took apart clocks or small machines to see the parts inside. He would study them carefully and try to put them back together. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it did not. But Albert enjoyed every try. Each time, he learned something new. This shows an important idea. Learning by doing is often better than just memorizing words from a book. Albert's curiosity also made him different from children at school. When he started school, he noticed that many classmates were only memorizing facts. They could repeat information, but they did not ask questions. They learned by copying, not by understanding. Albert often asked, "Why do we have to learn this?" Or, "Can we see how it works?" His teachers did not always like these questions. They wanted students to follow rules, not to question them. Albert felt frustrated, but he did not stop asking. In his free time, Albert read many books. He read books about math, physics, and nature. Some books were difficult for a child his age, but he tried to understand them. Sometimes he had to read the same page many times. Sometimes he had to draw pictures to see the ideas clearly. He liked imagining new worlds, thinking about space, and wondering how the universe worked. Even at a young age, his imagination was very strong. Albert also had a strong memory for some things. He could remember stories, poems, and numbers easily. But he did not use memory for memorization only. He used memory to help him explore and understand. For example, he could remember the movement of the planets he read about in a book. Then, he would imagine them moving in the sky. He created his own questions about them. "If the Earth moves this way, what happens to the stars?" he asked. This imagination was the first step to his future ideas about space and time. Sometimes, his curiosity caused small problems. Teachers thought he was slow or distracted. Classmates sometimes laughed at him because he asked too many questions. People did not understand him. They thought he was strange. But Albert did not feel bad. He felt excited about learning. He felt happy when he discovered something new. This shows an important lesson. Curiosity can be more important than fitting in. Following your mind is sometimes better than following the crowd. Albert's childhood also shows a strong contrast. Most children followed rules and memorized facts. Albert followed his curiosity. He explored, imagined, and asked questions. The children who memorized facts were like trains running on tracks. They moved straight, fast, and predictable. Albert was like a bird flying freely in the sky. He did not move in a straight line. He changed direction. He explored new paths. This freedom made him different, and later it helped him think in ways no one else could. Another story from his childhood shows his unique mind. When Albert was 5 years old, his father gave him a compass. The compass needle always pointed north. Albert was fascinated. He asked, "Why does it move like this?" He could not see anything inside the compass that made it move. He held it for hours, thinking. This simple compass inspired him to think about invisible forces in the world. Later, he used the idea of invisible forces in his studies of physics. Small curiosity, big ideas. Even in games, Albert's curiosity appeared. He liked building small models. He liked imagining how a train moved or how a boat floated. He asked questions like, "Why does this move faster?" or "Why does this float?" He often shared his ideas with friends. Sometimes they did not understand, but Albert kept asking and learning. He knew that understanding comes from questions, not just from copying answers. This early curiosity shaped Albert's mind for the future. His love of questions, his fascination with nature, and his playful experiments made him ready for bigger challenges. Even though school would later be difficult, Albert's curiosity gave him a strong foundation. It showed him how to think differently, how to explore, and how to imagine. Now, as we continue his story, we will see how this curious mind met the challenges of traditional school. How did a boy who loved questions survive a system that wanted only rules? How did curiosity help him face struggles? In the next section, we will see Albert's early struggles in school and how they shaped his path to genius. Chapter 3. Struggles in School. Hello, friends. In this section, we will follow young Albert Einstein as he faces school challenges. We will see how his creative mind sometimes clashed with strict rules. This story teaches us an important lesson. Struggles do not define your potential. You can face difficulties and still achieve great things. Albert Einstein started school like many other children, but he quickly noticed that school was very different from the world he loved. At home, he asked questions and explored ideas. At school, the rules were strict. Teachers wanted students to memorize facts and repeat answers. They wanted order, silence, and obedience. They did not like questions or experiments. Albert loved to think. He liked to understand why things happened. He liked exploring ideas, but in school, teachers often said, "Follow the rule." Do not question. Albert felt frustrated. He sometimes said, "But why?" Teachers didn't like that question. They thought he was slow or careless. One story from his early school years shows this clearly. In one class, the students had a test in arithmetic. Most children memorized the multiplication tables. Albert tried to understand why multiplication worked. He asked, "Why do we multiply this number by that number?" The teacher told him, "Just do it. Do not ask questions." Albert tried to follow the rule, but he felt confused. Later, he made a mistake on the test. The teacher was angry and said he was lazy. Albert felt sad and misunderstood. At times, Albert felt lonely at school. His classmates did not understand him. They laughed when he asked too many questions. They did not share his curiosity. Albert often played alone. He read books while others played games. He liked it because books gave him answers he could explore. But it was not easy to feel different. Sometimes, he wished he could fit in, but deep inside, he knew he wanted to think in his own way. The contrast between Albert and his classmates is clear. Most children followed instructions and memorized facts. Albert followed his mind. He wanted to understand, not just repeat. Most teachers thought this was a problem. They wanted fast answers. Albert wanted deep answers. Most students looked at school as a task. Albert looked at it as a world to explore. This difference caused tension and struggle. Albert also had difficulties with some subjects. Languages, for example, were challenging. German grammar and writing rules were hard for him. He often made mistakes in writing essays. Teachers marked him low. They said he was slow in learning languages. But in subjects like math and science, he was exceptional. He could solve problems in new ways. He could imagine solutions no one else thought of. This contrast shows an important lesson. Struggling in one area does not mean failure in life. Every person has strengths. Even when he was misunderstood, Albert did not stop thinking. He asked questions quietly in his notebook. He thought about science and numbers after school. He created small experiments at home. He tried to understand invisible forces like gravity and magnetism. These personal efforts helped him learn in a way school could not. Even when teachers were strict, Albert found freedom in his own mind. At school, mistakes were seen as failure. But Albert saw mistakes as part of learning. If an answer was wrong, he asked, "Why is it wrong?" He tried to understand the reason, not just get a grade. This approach helped him develop creative thinking. It was different from other students, but it gave him power for the future. One day, Albert's teacher scolded him for being slow in class. Albert felt frustrated and sad. He went home and told his father, "I think I will never do well at school." His father smiled and said, "Do not worry, Albert. Everyone learns in their own way. Some minds need more freedom to grow." These words stayed with him. They reminded him that struggles are not the end. They are just a part of learning. Albert's experience at school also shows us that systems are not always perfect. Sometimes rules are too strict. Sometimes teachers cannot understand creative thinking. But being different is not a weakness. Being different can be a strength. Albert's struggles in school did not stop him. They shaped him. They helped him find his own path. As we see in Albert's story, challenges can help a person grow. Difficulties can teach patience, persistence, and creativity. Even when the world does not understand you, you can continue learning. You can find your own methods. You can practice your ideas. You can explore your curiosity. These lessons are useful for English learners too. You may make mistakes. You may feel frustrated. But small steps and persistence lead to progress. Now, we are ready to see Albert take his first steps in self-learning. After struggling with strict school rules, he began exploring knowledge on his own. He started reading books, doing experiments, and thinking deeply. This is where his true journey begins. In the next section, we will follow Albert as he discovers the power of independent study and self-learning. Chapter 4: Self-Learning and Independence. Hello, friends. In this section, we will see how Albert Einstein began learning on his own. We will discover how curiosity and independence helped him grow. This part of his life teaches an important lesson. Taking initiative is the key to real learning and success. After struggling in school, Albert realized that he needed another way to learn. He could not always rely on teachers or textbooks. He wanted to explore ideas in his own way. So, he started reading books by himself. He did not just read stories. He read about science, math, and nature. Some books were difficult for his age, but he did not give up. He read slowly, thinking about every idea. Albert loved physics. He wanted to understand the world. He read about light, electricity, and forces. He tried to imagine how invisible forces moved the planets and the stars. Sometimes he drew pictures to see the ideas clearly. Sometimes he created small experiments at home. For example, he would drop objects and watch how they fell. He would spin a wheel and think about motion. He wanted to see the rules of nature for himself. While other children played outside, Albert spent hours with his books and experiments. He did not feel lonely. He felt excited. Each discovery gave him joy. When he solved a problem, he smiled and asked more questions. He wanted to understand more. He wanted to see connections between ideas. He did not just want answers. He wanted understanding. Albert also loved math. He solved problems for fun. He did not wait for teachers to assign homework. He created his own challenges. Sometimes he made mistakes. Sometimes he got answers wrong. But mistakes were not a problem for him. They were a way to learn. Every error gave him a new idea. He learned faster because he tried on his own, not because someone told him the steps. At this time, Albert showed a big contrast between two ways of learning. Most students followed textbooks blindly. They memorized facts and repeated examples. Albert did not. He asked, "Why does this work?" He wanted to understand the reason. He wanted to discover the idea himself. This independent learning gave him freedom. It gave him creativity. It gave him confidence. One story from his home experiments shows this clearly. Albert took a magnet and a piece of iron. He watched how the iron moved toward the magnet. Then he asked, "Why does it move? What is the force that pulls it?" He thought for hours. He read books about magnets. He tried different experiments. He observed carefully. He did not stop until he understood the idea. This simple experiment was small, but it showed how much he loved independent learning. Albert's self-learning was not easy. Sometimes the books were too hard. Sometimes experiments did not work. Sometimes he felt tired or frustrated, but he did not give up. He learned to be patient. He learned to explore slowly. He learned to think carefully. These skills were more important than any grade in school. They helped him grow in a way that classroom learning could not. At home, Albert also discussed ideas with his parents. He asked questions about the universe, energy, and light. Sometimes his parents could not answer, but they encouraged him to continue thinking. They gave him books. They gave him space to explore. This support helped him feel confident. Even when others doubted him, he believed in his own ideas. Albert's independence also made him different from his classmates. Some students followed teachers and memorized rules. Albert followed his mind and asked questions. Others waited for instructions. Albert created his own experiments. Others were satisfied with what was easy. Albert wanted to understand deeply. This difference made him unique. It also prepared him for big discoveries in the future. Learning on his own also gave Albert creativity. He learned to imagine ideas before seeing them. He could think about invisible forces, like gravity or light. He could picture objects moving in space. This imagination was a skill that school could not teach. Only his curiosity and independence gave him this ability. One day, while reading a book about light, Albert had a small insight. He imagined what it would be like to ride alongside a beam of light. He asked himself, What would I see if I moved as fast as light? He thought for hours, imagining the world from this perspective. This thought would later become very important in his work on relativity. Small curiosity, independent thinking, and imagination led to big ideas. Albert's self-learning also shows an important lesson for life. If you take responsibility for your own growth, you can achieve much more than just following rules. You can explore, create, and discover new things. Learning does not need to be boring. It can be exciting. Every small question, every small experiment brings you closer to understanding. Now, after years of independent learning, Albert faced a new challenge. He was growing older and doubts began to appear. He asked himself, "Am I really good enough? Can I achieve something important?" These questions were natural. Even curious and intelligent people feel doubt. In the next section, we will see how Albert faced these moments of self-questioning and what he did to continue his journey toward genius. Chapter 5. Facing Doubt. Hello, friends. In this section, we will explore a very important part of Albert Einstein's journey, facing doubt. Even the smartest and most curious minds feel fear and uncertainty. Today, we will see how Albert experienced doubt and how he learned to keep going. This story teaches an important lesson. Doubts are normal, but persistence leads to growth. As Albert grew older, life became more challenging. School was still difficult. Teachers did not always understand him. Classmates sometimes laughed at his questions or ideas. Even some family members worried about his future. They asked, "Albert, are you sure you will be successful?" At times, their doubts made Albert question himself. He thought, maybe I am not smart enough. Maybe I cannot do something important. Albert often felt fear of failure, fear of being different, fear of making mistakes. These feelings are normal. Everyone experiences them. Even the greatest minds feel them. But Albert did not stop. He knew that doubt was only one part of learning. He learned that courage means continuing, even when you feel uncertain. One example comes from his experiments at home. Albert loved exploring light, motion, and numbers. Sometimes an experiment would fail. He would think, I am not good at this. I will never understand. But then, he would try again. He would change one step. He would look carefully at the result. Slowly, he learned. Slowly, he improved. Each small success gave him confidence. Each failure became a lesson, not a reason to give up. Albert also faced doubts from others. Teachers sometimes told him he was slow or careless. Some friends said he spent too much time studying and not enough time playing. Even adults questioned his choices. Why do you think about these things instead of learning what you are told? They asked. Albert listened, but he did not let their doubts stop him. He believed that thinking differently was important. He believed that curiosity was stronger than fear. Sometimes Albert wrote down his worries. He made notes about what he did not understand. He asked questions in his notebook. Why does the light move so fast? Or how does gravity work? Writing helped him organize his thoughts. It helped him see that doubts were part of learning. By facing questions instead of avoiding them, he grew stronger. Even when Albert felt alone, he found inspiration in small things. A spinning top, a falling apple, a beam of light. These were not just toys or simple objects. They were mysteries to explore. Every small observation gave him new ideas. These small successes reminded him that he could understand more if he persisted. Every small experiment became a step forward. Albert also learned to contrast fear and courage. Fear made him pause. Courage made him act. Sometimes he felt fear very strongly. He worried about failing in school. He worried about disappointing others, but he chose courage. He chose to keep asking questions. He chose to keep learning on his own. This contrast between fear and action became a pattern in his life. Courage always followed curiosity. Another story shows his mindset. One day, Albert tried to solve a difficult math problem. He tried many times and failed. He thought, "I cannot do it. I am not smart." Then he took a break and played with a small mechanical toy. He watched how the parts moved. Suddenly, he had an idea. He returned to the problem and solved it. This shows that persistence, combined with curiosity, can overcome doubt. Albert's self-doubt also taught him humility. He knew that even great ideas take time. He learned patience. He learned that failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. Each mistake teaches something new. This lesson is useful for all of us. Whether we are learning English, science, or life skills, doubts, and mistakes are natural. They help us grow. During these years, Albert began to see a pattern. Every time he felt doubt, he asked himself, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of giving up, he explored more. Instead of feeling afraid, he experimented. Doubt became a guide, not a barrier. This habit helped him develop resilience, creativity, and independence. Albert's story also shows a contrast between two paths. One path is giving up when others doubt you, or when you feel fear. The other path is continuing, even when the path is hard. Most people choose the easy path. They stop trying when they feel doubt. Albert chose the hard path. He faced fear, uncertainty, and criticism. He kept exploring. He kept learning. This choice prepared him for the turning points in his life. By facing doubt, Albert became stronger. By experimenting and thinking for himself, he learned to trust his ideas. By choosing courage, he turned fear into growth. This period of his life shows an important truth. Genius is not only about intelligence. Genius is also about persistence, courage, and the willingness to explore, even when the world doubts you. Now, after facing doubt and learning to persist, Albert was ready for his first major achievements. The small experiments, the late nights with books, the questions in his notebook, all these moments built a foundation. In the next section, we will see how these efforts led to the miracle year, when Albert made his first big discoveries. These achievements would begin to change the world. Chapter 6. The Miracle Year. Hello, friends. In this section, we will explore one of the most important years in Albert Einstein's life. It is called his Annus Mirabilis, or Miracle Year. This is the year when he published ideas that changed science forever. We will see how quiet work and persistence can lead to big breakthroughs. In 1905, Albert Einstein was working in a small office in Switzerland. It was not a university or a laboratory. It was a patent office. He checked inventions and wrote reports. The work was simple and routine, but it gave him time to think. While others were busy with daily tasks, Albert used his free moments to explore ideas about light, motion, and energy. This was very different from his childhood struggles. As a child, teachers thought he was slow. At school, he struggled with strict rules. Even when facing doubt, he kept learning independently. Now, years later, he was ready to connect all his ideas. The boy who asked endless questions at home had grown into a thinker with the power to change how we understand the universe. Einstein's miracle year produced 4 major papers. Each paper introduced a new idea. One explained how light can act as tiny particles, which we call photons. Another described the movement of molecules in liquids, helping people understand atoms better. A third explained the special theory of relativity, showing how time and space are connected. The last paper gave an equation that became famous: E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. These papers were small in size, but their ideas were huge. Imagine Albert sitting quietly at his desk. He had papers, pencils, and books. He was thinking deeply. Outside, the world was busy with normal life. Inside, Albert's mind was traveling through space, time, and light. He imagined riding with a beam of light. He asked questions no one had asked before. Slowly, ideas came together. This quiet thinking led to great discoveries. This moment shows an important lesson. Great ideas often come after years of preparation. Success does not always appear suddenly. It is often the result of years of thinking, learning, and small experiments. Albert did not suddenly become a genius. He worked quietly, explored patiently, and connected ideas over time. The miracle year was the result of many small steps taken long before. During this time, Albert continued his habit of observation. He looked at the world with curiosity. He watched clocks, light, and moving objects. He imagined invisible forces and abstract concepts. This combination of curiosity, imagination, and quiet work made his ideas unique. Others had studied physics, but few had the courage to think in such new ways. Even though his ideas were brilliant, Einstein did not rush to fame. He submitted his papers to a scientific journal. Some people read them carefully. Others were surprised. Many scientists did not understand at first. They asked, "How can a young patent clerk know so much?" But Albert's papers were clear, logical, and full of evidence. Slowly, the world began to notice. There is a contrast here that is very inspiring. Earlier in his life, Albert was doubted by teachers and classmates. Now, he was creating ideas that challenged the world's understanding of science. The boy who struggled in school became the man whose ideas would influence generations. This contrast teaches us an important lesson. Struggles do not prevent breakthroughs. Small steps, patience, and curiosity can lead to extraordinary achievements. Albert also learned that quiet work is powerful. You do not need to be famous or in a big laboratory to create something meaningful. You need focus, curiosity, and persistence. You need to ask questions, observe carefully, and think deeply. Success often comes quietly, without noise or attention. The miracle year was not about fame. It was about ideas, patience, and thoughtful effort. One story shows Albert's mindset during this time. He was checking a report at the patent office when he suddenly thought about energy and light. He connected 2 ideas he had been exploring separately. One small idea led to another. Suddenly, he saw a pattern, a connection that no one had noticed before. He smiled quietly. He knew he had discovered something important. This moment of insight shows how persistence and independent thinking create opportunities for breakthroughs. Even after publishing these papers, Einstein faced challenges. Not everyone understood his ideas immediately. Some scientists were skeptical. Some thought his work was too strange. Communicating revolutionary ideas is never easy. This is the next lesson. Having a great idea is only the first step. Sharing it with the world and helping people understand it is another challenge. Albert's miracle year also reminds us of another truth. Big achievements often follow small, consistent actions. Reading books, doing experiments, asking questions, thinking quietly, these habits may seem small, they may seem ordinary, but over time, they build a foundation for extraordinary results. Albert's years of curiosity, self-learning, and persistence prepared him for this moment. In this story, we can also see hope for learners. Sometimes we feel ordinary or slow. Sometimes our hard work feels invisible. But patience, curiosity, and consistent effort can lead to results beyond our imagination. Even small daily actions can lead to big achievements. Just like Albert, we can take small steps and build knowledge quietly. Now, having achieved these breakthroughs, Albert faced a new challenge. How would the world respond to ideas that were so new, so different? How could he explain concepts that changed the way people understood space, time, and energy? In the next section, we will see how Einstein faced criticism, skepticism, and the challenge of communicating revolutionary ideas to the world. Chapter 7. Overcoming Criticism. Hello, friends. In this section, we will see how Albert Einstein faced criticism. Even after his miracle year, not everyone understood his ideas. This story teaches an important lesson. Resilience is essential for innovation. Sometimes, others may doubt your work, but persistence and patience can lead to recognition and success. After publishing his groundbreaking papers in 1905, Albert expected scientists to be excited. He believed that his discoveries would change the way people thought about physics. But the response was not immediate. Many scientists were skeptical. Some said his ideas were too strange. Others said a young patent clerk could not possibly understand such deep concepts. Albert felt frustrated. Imagine Albert reading letters from other scientists. Some were polite, but some were critical. One wrote, "Your ideas about space and time are confusing. They contradict everything we know." Another said, "A simple clerk cannot change physics." Albert could have been angry or discouraged, but he remained calm. He understood that true innovation often meets resistance at first. Albert's patience was remarkable. He knew that his ideas were logical and based on careful thinking. He continued his work quietly. He wrote more papers. He refined his theories. He corresponded with other scientists to explain his ideas clearly. Sometimes it took months or years for people to understand what he meant. He did not give up. He trusted his curiosity, his reasoning, and his experiments. There is a strong contrast here. Many people give up when others doubt them. They stop working on their ideas because of criticism or fear. Albert did not. He faced rejection calmly and kept moving forward. He learned that resistance is a natural part of progress. Every new idea challenges old ways of thinking. Every revolutionary concept meets doubt. This is normal, and it is not a sign of failure. One story shows Albert's resilience. In a meeting with other physicists, some colleagues openly questioned his theory of relativity. They asked difficult questions and pointed out possible errors. Albert listened carefully. He answered politely and explained his reasoning step by step. He did not argue angrily. He did not give up. He used their doubts as a way to improve his explanations. Over time, more people began to understand and accept his ideas. Even Albert's friends sometimes doubted him. They thought his focus on theoretical physics was unusual. They worried that practical work, like engineering, was more useful. But Albert continued following his passion. He knew that understanding the universe required deep thinking, imagination, and patience. He accepted criticism but did not let it stop him. During this time, Albert also learned humility. He realized that being criticized does not mean you are wrong. Sometimes, others simply need time to understand. He learned to listen, reflect, and explain. This attitude helped him gain respect and eventually acceptance. Resilience is not only about refusing to give up. It is also about learning from feedback and improving your work. Albert's experience shows a contrast between fear and courage. Fear of criticism can stop most people. Courage allows them to continue. At times, Albert felt doubt himself. He questioned if his ideas were too bold, but courage and persistence helped him continue. He focused on the logic, the evidence, and his curiosity. Step by step, he overcame the skepticism of others. Another important lesson comes from patience. Revolutionary ideas take time to be accepted. Albert's theory of relativity challenged long-standing beliefs about space and time. People needed time to read, study, and understand. Some scientists criticized him at first. Later, many became supporters. His patience turned initial rejection into eventual recognition. This teaches us that slow, careful work is more powerful than rushing for approval. Albert's resilience was not only in science, it also applied to life. He faced challenges in work, in relationships, and in society. He remained true to his values, followed his curiosity, and worked patiently. Resilience is a skill that can be learned. It helps us continue even when the world doubts us. It helps us grow stronger through challenges. By facing criticism and skepticism, Albert became stronger as a thinker and as a person. He learned to explain his ideas clearly. He learned to be patient. He learned that real innovation often meets resistance. Most importantly, he learned to trust himself. This trust allowed him to grow beyond just his scientific discoveries. Now, after overcoming criticism, Albert was ready for personal growth beyond science. He began to think deeply about life, philosophy, and human values. He reflected on creativity, curiosity, and the meaning of success. In the next section, we will explore how these experiences helped him grow as a person, not just as a scientist. His journey teaches us lessons for life, learning, and persistence. Chapter 8: Personal Life Lessons. Hello, friends. In this section, we will explore Albert Einstein's personal life lessons. We will see that his values were just as important as his intelligence. This story teaches us that curiosity, kindness, persistence, and humility create a true legacy. Fame is temporary, but character lasts forever. Even after becoming famous, Albert remained simple. He did not care much about expensive clothes or luxurious items. He wore simple suits and sometimes messy hair. People noticed his unusual style, but he did not mind. He believed that focusing on work, curiosity, and ideas was more important than appearances. He once said, "I live my life simply so that I can think freely." This shows an important lesson. Simplicity allows focus and creativity. Albert also valued curiosity in everyday life. He did not stop asking questions, even as a world-famous scientist. He asked about the stars, light, music, and human behavior. He talked with students, friends, and colleagues about big ideas. Sometimes he asked small questions about daily life, like why a clock worked a certain way or why rivers flow. Curiosity was not only for science, it was a way to see life deeply and enjoy learning every day. Persistence was another key value. Even when facing criticism or challenges, Albert never gave up. He continued to think, explore, and experiment. In his personal life, he also applied persistence. He helped students who struggled in school. He encouraged young scientists to ask questions and explore ideas. He believed that growth comes from effort, not just natural talent. His persistence showed others that consistent effort is more important than luck. Kindness was a value Albert practiced quietly. Even with fame, he treated others with respect. He helped students, offered advice to colleagues, and supported humanitarian causes. He wrote letters to people who were suffering or facing difficulties, encouraging them. He believed that intelligence should be used for the benefit of humanity, not just for personal gain. This shows an important contrast. Intelligence without kindness can be empty, but intelligence with empathy creates a true legacy. One story shows his kindness and humility. A young student wrote to Albert asking for advice about studying physics. Albert replied politely, offering encouragement and guidance. The student later became a successful scientist and always remembered Albert's support. Small acts of kindness, even from a busy, famous person, can make a big difference. Albert understood this, and he practiced it throughout his life. Albert also embraced simplicity despite fame. He did not live in luxury or show off his success. He preferred quiet walks, reading and thinking. He enjoyed simple pleasures like music, sailing, and talking with friends. This contrasts with many famous people who are focused on status or wealth. Albert's focus on ideas and relationships rather than possessions shows that true happiness comes from inner values, not external recognition. Another lesson comes from his humility. Even with revolutionary ideas, Albert never thought he knew everything. He continued to ask questions, explore, and learn. He listened to others and valued their perspectives. This humility allowed him to grow continuously. It also inspired people around him. Students and colleagues respected him not only for intelligence, but also for openness and generosity. Albert also believed in the importance of teaching and sharing knowledge. He often spoke to students about curiosity and imagination. He encouraged them to explore and ask questions. He believed that every person could discover something new if they worked hard and thought deeply. Teaching was not just a job for him. It was a way to spread curiosity and inspire others. His personal life also reflected the balance between work and joy. Albert enjoyed music, especially the violin. He often played music to relax and think. He used simple methods like taking long walks to find clarity in his ideas. This balance shows an important life lesson. Work and rest, thinking and enjoyment, curiosity and simplicity, all are important for a meaningful life. Albert's values created a legacy that went beyond science. People remembered him not only for his theories, but for his kindness, humility, and wisdom. Intelligence alone can impress, but it is character that shapes a lasting legacy. He showed that curiosity, simplicity, persistence, and kindness are as important as any achievement. Finally, Albert's life teaches us to look beyond fame and recognition. True greatness is about what you contribute to the world, how you treat others, and how you continue learning and exploring. This lesson is important for all learners. Whether you study English, science, or life skills, focus on growth, kindness, and curiosity. These qualities create a lasting impact. Now, having explored his personal values, we are ready to see the global impact of Einstein's ideas. His curiosity, persistence, and innovative thinking not only changed science, but also influenced the way people think about the world. In the next section, we will explore how his ideas reached beyond himself and shaped the world. Chapter 9. Thinking Differently. Hello, friends. In this section, we will explore how Albert Einstein thought differently. His approach to thinking is one of the most important lessons from his life. We will see how questioning assumptions, imagining ideas, and using thought experiments helped him create breakthroughs. This story teaches us that creative thinking is more powerful than simply following rules. Einstein's mind was never satisfied with simple answers. He did not accept what everyone told him as truth. He asked, why? And what if? This curiosity helped him see problems in new ways. Ordinary thinking often accepts rules without question. Creative thinking asks questions, tests ideas, and imagines possibilities. This is how Einstein discovered so many new concepts in physics. One of his famous methods was thought experiments. These are experiments done in the mind, not in a laboratory. Albert would imagine situations, think carefully about the results, and explore ideas. One famous example is imagining riding on a beam of light. He asked himself, if I could travel at the speed of light, what would I see? By imagining this, he discovered new ways to understand space and time. Another example is the elevator thought experiment. Albert imagined an elevator moving up and down in space. He asked, if someone is inside, how would they feel gravity? How would motion affect their experience? These experiments helped him understand the connection between gravity, motion, and space. He did not need fancy machines or experiments at first. He used imagination, curiosity, and careful thinking. This shows a clear contrast between ordinary thinking and creative problem solving. Ordinary thinkers follow rules, repeat examples, and accept what is already known. Creative thinkers like Albert question assumptions, imagine new scenarios, and explore ideas freely. This mindset allows discoveries that others cannot see. Even in daily life, thinking differently helps us find solutions to problems that seem difficult at first. Albert's thought experiments were sometimes simple, but their impact was huge. He often used everyday examples, like trains, clocks, or light beams. He asked questions that seemed unusual, like, what happens if I move as fast as a beam of light? These questions helped him see connections that others missed. Creative thinking often begins with simple observations and unusual questions. Einstein also combined imagination with logic. He did not just imagine anything. He carefully thought about consequences and patterns. He asked, if this is true, what else must be true? By connecting ideas step by step, he discovered laws of nature. This combination of imagination and careful reasoning is what made his thinking so powerful. Another story shows his approach to problem solving. Once, while thinking about how light moves, Albert imagined a train moving past a station. He asked, if a person on the train sees light differently than a person at the station, how does this change our understanding of time? He spent hours thinking about the problem, drawing diagrams, and imagining perspectives. This simple train example helped him develop important ideas for relativity. Einstein's thinking shows an important lesson for learners. Creative thinking is not just for scientists. We can use imagination and curiosity in learning, work, and everyday life. Asking questions, exploring alternatives, and imagining different scenarios helps solve problems. This mindset encourages growth and discovery, just as it helped Albert make breakthroughs in physics. Ordinary thinking often relies on memorization or following instructions. Creative thinking looks for patterns, asks questions, and explores new possibilities. Albert showed that both imagination and careful reasoning are necessary. Thought experiments are a perfect example. They are simple, mental exercises that develop understanding deeply and creatively. Albert's approach also teaches patience and focus. Thought experiments take time. They require attention to detail and willingness to explore consequences. Albert often spent hours thinking quietly, imagining scenarios and testing ideas in his mind. This method shows that slow, careful, and thoughtful exploration is more powerful than rushing to an answer. We can also apply this to learning English. Instead of only memorizing words or rules, we can imagine conversations, practice scenarios, and think creatively about language. Asking, "What if I say it differently?" Or, "How would I explain this to a friend?" is like a thought experiment for learning. This method makes understanding deeper and more flexible. Einstein's thinking also shows the importance of challenging assumptions. He never accepted that things were impossible. If a problem seemed difficult, he asked, "What is really stopping me? Can I think differently?" This mindset is useful for all learners. When you feel stuck in learning, imagining alternatives and exploring new methods can create breakthroughs. Finally, Einstein's thought experiments remind us that creativity comes from curiosity, patience, and courage to question the ordinary. Even small daily exercises of imagination and exploration can lead to big results. Thinking differently does not always require tools, tests, or classrooms. It begins in the mind, with simple questions and careful observation. Now that we understand how Einstein thought differently, we are ready to explore practical lessons for our own lives. In the next section, we will see how his mindset, curiosity, and persistence can inspire learners everywhere to take action, solve problems, and create opportunities for themselves. Chapter 10. Lessons for Life and Learning. English. Hello, friends. In this section, we will take the lessons from Albert Einstein's life and apply them to our own learning. We will see how curiosity, patience, persistence, and creative thinking can help us grow, not just in science, but in learning English and life. This story teaches an important lesson. Small, consistent efforts lead to big results. Einstein's life shows us that success does not come from talent alone. It comes from habits, practice, and curiosity. He asked questions, explored ideas, and never gave up, even when people doubted him. We can do the same in learning English. We can ask, "Why does this word sound different? How can I use it in a sentence?" Curiosity makes learning exciting and meaningful. Patience is another key lesson. Albert spent years learning, experimenting, and thinking before his big breakthroughs. He did not give up when things were hard. Learning English works the same way. It takes time to remember words, understand grammar, and speak confidently. Some days may feel slow or frustrating. That is normal. Patience allows progress to happen step by step. Persistence is closely connected to patience. Einstein did not stop when others doubted him. He kept reading, experimenting, and thinking. We can also practice persistence in our learning. Even if we make mistakes, forget words, or struggle with listening and speaking, we can continue practicing. Each small effort adds up over time. Daily practice, even for a few minutes, is more powerful than occasional long sessions. Curiosity is another important habit. Albert's curiosity helped him ask questions and explore new ideas. When learning English, we can be curious about how people speak, how words change meaning, and how sentences are structured. We can ask, "What if I say it this way?" Or, "How would a native speaker use this word?" Curiosity transforms learning from boring to exciting. Another lesson is the importance of small, consistent steps. Albert did not make his discoveries overnight. Years of quiet study, small experiments, and thought experiments prepared him for his miracle year. Similarly, learning English or developing thinking skills is about small, daily steps. Reading a few sentences, listening to a short story, or practicing a few words every day builds strong habits. Over months and years, these small steps create significant improvement. Albert also teaches us about resilience. He faced criticism, doubt, and challenges. But he didn't stop. When we make mistakes in English, or when others correct us, we should not feel discouraged. Mistakes are part of learning. Each mistake is a chance to improve. Resilience allows us to continue, even when progress feels slow. We can also learn from his method of thinking differently. Einstein used imagination and thought experiments to explore new ideas. We can use imagination in learning English. We can imagine conversations with friends, imagine giving a presentation, or imagine reading a story and answering questions. This mental practice strengthens our understanding and confidence. One story shows how small, consistent actions lead to big improvement. Imagine a student who wants to improve listening and speaking. At first, it is difficult. Words are hard to understand. Pronunciation is challenging and sentences feel confusing. But the student listens to a short story every day, repeats sentences, and practices speaking for 10 minutes daily. After months, the student notices progress. Listening becomes easier, speaking becomes more fluent, and understanding grows. This is the power of small, consistent steps, just like Einstein's daily curiosity and experiments. Einstein's life also teaches us that learning is not only about speed, it is about depth and understanding. Rushing through words or grammar rules without thinking deeply does not create real knowledge. Taking time to explore ideas, asking questions, and reflecting on mistakes leads to meaningful learning. Quality matters more than quantity. Another lesson is to enjoy the process. Albert loved learning for the joy of discovery. He was excited to explore, experiment, and imagine. Learning English can also be fun. Reading interesting stories, listening to songs, or watching videos in English can turn practice into enjoyment. Curiosity and enjoyment make learning sustainable and effective. Finally, Albert teaches us that anyone can improve. Success is not reserved for geniuses. It is reserved for those who are curious, patient, persistent, and willing to think differently. Whether learning English, solving problems, or developing skills in any area, we can apply these habits. Small daily practice, resilience in the face of mistakes, and curiosity to explore new ideas create growth. By following Einstein's example, we can become better learners and thinkers. We can practice English every day, ask questions, explore ideas, and persist even when it feels hard. We can turn mistakes into lessons, fear into courage, and curiosity into knowledge. Step by step, day by day, improvement will come. Now, having learned these practical lessons, we are ready for the final section. In the next part, we will bring all of Einstein's life lessons together. We will see how his story inspires us to be curious, persistent, and creative. We will end with motivation to take action and apply these habits in our own lives, in English and beyond. Chapter 11. Conclusion and Motivation. Hello, friends. We have reached the final section of Albert Einstein's story, and what a journey it has been. From a curious child asking endless questions, to a young boy struggling in school, to an independent thinker quietly exploring ideas, and finally, to a world-changing scientist. Albert's life teaches us lessons that go far beyond science. In this conclusion, we will recap his journey, reflect on his emotional struggles, and find inspiration for our own learning and growth. Albert Einstein began as a curious child. He loved to ask questions, explore, and wonder about the world around him. While other children memorized facts, he wanted to understand the why behind everything. He asked his parents and teachers countless questions, sometimes frustrating them. Yet, his curiosity was the spark that started it all. This is a lesson for all of us. Asking questions and exploring our world is more important than simply following instructions or doing what is expected. Curiosity leads to discovery. As he grew, Albert faced struggles in school. He found it difficult to fit into a rigid education system. Teachers misunderstood him, classmates laughed at his differences, and sometimes even family members questioned his choices. But Albert did not let these struggles define him. Instead, he learned the first important lesson of persistence. Challenges are part of learning, and struggles do not determine our potential. Even when you feel misunderstood or behind in your studies, you can continue to grow. Albert's path to success was shaped by self-learning and independence. While other children played or followed textbooks blindly, he spent hours reading books, solving problems, and conducting experiments at home. He found excitement in discovering ideas on his own. This is a lesson for learners everywhere. Taking initiative and learning for yourself is more valuable than simply repeating what others tell you. The more you explore, the more your mind grows, and the more confident you become in your abilities. Of course, the journey was not easy. Albert faced doubt, both from himself and others. Sometimes he questioned his abilities. Sometimes teachers, peers, and even family doubted his potential. But he learned to face fear and uncertainty with courage. He tried again, experimented, and reflected on mistakes. Doubts did not stop him. They became stepping stones to growth. This shows us that doubt is normal. Feeling unsure does not mean you cannot succeed. With persistence and reflection, doubt can become a powerful guide. Einstein's miracle year, 1905, was the turning point. After years of quiet work, careful thinking, and small experiments, he connected ideas in ways no one had before. In a small patent office, he imagined riding on light, studied motion, and explored energy. He published groundbreaking papers on relativity, photons, and energy. The contrast is striking. The boy, who struggled in school, had now become the man whose ideas would change the world. This teaches a crucial lesson. Preparation, curiosity, and quiet effort over time lead to big breakthroughs. Even after his discoveries, Einstein faced criticism and skepticism. Many scientists doubted his ideas, calling them confusing or impossible, but he responded with patience, humility, and persistence. He explained his theories carefully and never gave up. Eventually, his work was recognized and celebrated. This teaches us resilience. When you face criticism or mistakes in learning English or in life, remember that progress is often slow. Keep working patiently, and your effort will eventually be understood and appreciated. Albert's personal life offers more lessons beyond science. Despite fame, he valued simplicity, humility, and kindness. He lived a modest life, focused on curiosity, teaching, and helping others. He encouraged students, supported friends, and practiced empathy. Intelligence alone is not enough to leave a legacy. Character, kindness, and humility are equally important. Whether you are learning English or pursuing other goals, remember that how you treat others and your values matter more than recognition or status. One of the most inspiring lessons from Einstein is his way of thinking. He questioned assumptions, imagined scenarios, and conducted thought experiments in his mind. The famous train or elevator examples show how creative thinking leads to breakthroughs. Ordinary thinking often accepts facts without question. Creative thinking challenges assumptions, imagines possibilities, and finds new solutions. This is a lesson for life and for learning English. Try to think differently, imagine alternatives, and explore ideas beyond the obvious. Creative thinking opens new doors. We can also learn from Einstein's daily habits and approach to challenges. Small, consistent steps, like reading, experimenting, or practicing English daily, build a strong foundation for growth. Learning does not happen overnight. Each small effort contributes to progress. Mistakes are part of the journey, not the end. Each correction, each practice session, and each moment of reflection brings improvement. Small daily actions matter more than big occasional efforts. Now, friends, think about your own learning journey. You might be struggling with English, grammar, listening, or speaking. You might feel doubts, fear, or frustration. Remember Albert Einstein. Remember the curious child, the struggling student, the independent thinker, and the persistent scientist. He faced doubt, criticism, and challenges. Yet he kept exploring, learning, and thinking differently. You can do the same. Every small step counts. Every question you ask, every sentence you practice, every moment of reflection brings you closer to improvement. Curiosity, patience, persistence, creativity, and resilience are lessons we can all apply. Ask questions, explore ideas, practice daily, reflect on mistakes, be kind and humble. Treat learning as an adventure, not a burden. Like Einstein, you can discover new ways to understand the world and yourself. These habits help not only with English, but also with thinking, problem-solving, and personal growth. Let us also remember the emotional journey. Einstein experienced hope, doubt, frustration, excitement, and triumph. Learning and growth are emotional experiences. Feeling overwhelmed at times is normal. Feeling joy when understanding something new is part of the reward. Embrace these emotions as part of your journey. They show that you are alive, learning, and growing. Finally, let us think about action. Inspiration is powerful, but action is what creates results. Today, take one small step. Read a short paragraph in English. Write a few sentences. Ask a question and try to answer it. Listen to a short story or repeat a phrase. These small steps, repeated daily, lead to improvement. You do not need to do everything at once. Just start. Just try. Just practice. Albert Einstein's story shows that extraordinary achievements start with ordinary actions. Small steps, curiosity, patience, persistence, creativity, and kindness can lead to a meaningful life. Your journey may be different, but the principles are the same. Keep asking, keep exploring, and never stop learning. Remember, even the greatest minds started with small steps. So, friends, thank you for joining this journey through Albert Einstein's life. Remember his curiosity, his courage, his persistence, and his kindness. Apply these lessons to learning English, to thinking creatively, and to living a meaningful life. Every question you ask, every practice you do, every small step you take brings you closer to your goals. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself. Your journey is just beginning, and every small step matters. Stay curious, stay persistent, and let your imagination guide you. The world is waiting for your ideas and your creativity. Thank you, friends. Keep exploring, keep learning, and make each day a step toward your own miracle year.